Yeah, absolutely it is. Well, it's great to meet you, and I want to begin our conversation with looking at the calendar now. 4 years ago, this pandemic happened. How did you survive that time period, and how did it change you?
It was actually I remember very very well. We were actually in Arizona. Well, actually, I was flying. I flew to Australia for a lecture, and to work with a Korean baseball team in Australia. Had the spring training there, and we heard news reports on the way about this was happening in China and in the city there, and people were concerned, but no one really thought it was going to spread too far. And I came back from Australia, went to spring training, and started out spring training was okay, and then we got deeper into spring training, and this is February March, and every week it kind of got worse and worse to the point that we were actually with the Diamondbacks in Arizona and Phoenix, and people were getting sick and they're taking to the doctor, and everyone was basically thinking, when is MLB going to shut this down? And then I remember they kind of shut it down, and we had to pack up. And I have a picture actually of the sunset over the training camp in Phoenix there, kind of
Wow.
like the question, when are we going to come back? And that was kind of the end of it. But everything was remote, and then as things picked up again, it got to be very, very much remote testing, and then we got to do some in-person testing on certain players. Had a lot of our own, COVID testing we had to go through, and then it's kind of about back more to normal.
So, to get a really specific handle on what you do on a daily basis, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day. One of the kids is curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Well, I would say I help people perform at their best, whether that's in sports, whether that's in trying to navigate, streets, city, whatever they're trying to do. I want to optimize their vision. And when I say vision, I'm not talking about just their eyes. I'm talking about everything in the brain and the hands and the arms. Because ask a third grader to kind of walk around the room with the eyes closed, they'll have some trouble. And everything we do is based on our vision. And so I want to maximize and optimize the vision so that people can perform at their best.
So, is it baseball or is it diversified? Is it different sports?
Oh, I do many sports. I had two, both for the Beijing Olympics. I was with the USA team in Beijing, and last year in Tokyo, they actually limited who could go. So I had a team there as well. A country, I've worked with three NBA teams, NHL team, a lot of baseball, certainly, race car drivers, tennis players. You need your eyes for all that.
Yeah, you certainly do. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Well, third grade, I probably want to be an astronaut. And
Yeah,
given the opportunity, if anyone wants to give me a ring, I'd be happy to talk to them about being an astronaut now,
yeah,
because I would love to see the Earth from space and
yeah.
so forth. But since that's probably not happening, and I didn't become an astronaut for many reasons, I wanted to never was to be an athlete. I never had any dream of athletics. I was always, when I got to high school, when they picked the teams, I was always pretty much the last one chosen. I was on the varsity golf team only because they only had five people and needed six for the team, so I was a shoo-in. And never much into sports. Ended up going more into academic things. Ended up computer science interest in high school. Started working with paper tape and with punch cards and line printers and all the early computers in the 80s. Went to college as a computer science major, actually, but found it a little bit too easy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Went then into, and this is before there was artificial intelligence and all the stuff that's in there now, but
Yeah.
decided I wanted to go to med school. So there was a chemistry, computer science major undergrad, went to med school, thought I could learn everything about medicine and be a wonderful doctor, realized pretty quickly that I was never going to learn everything about medicine. So I said, okay, we'll narrow it down to just the eyes. I learned everything about the eyes, and I learned quickly not to learn everything about the eyes either. Narrowed it down into actually pediatric ophthalmology and strabismus, which is misalignment of the eyes, crossed eyes or eyes that wander, or lazy eye type of things. Went to do my fellowship and was planning to do that for my life. And the director of the fellowship said, "We have this project that you have to finish. Everyone's got to do a project. We have this one that's not finished. I want you to finish it." I was like, "No, I want to do my own project. I want to choose what's interesting to me." And he kind of insisted, and you can't really argue too much with the chairman. So we came to a deal that I would do the project, and I would be the first author on the paper that was going to be published. Okay, so the paper had to do with, or the work had to do with Dodger data that they had done the spring before, about 3 months before I arrived there, spring training, where they had collected data on the Dodgers' vision. And so I took that over, wrote the paper, ended up being the first paper published in the medical ophthalmology literature about sports vision. And the Dodgers had me back, I think about 18 seasons after that for each year. And then other teams heard about it and it grew. And, now basically the entire February through March is full. We were away for about 5-6 weeks, doing major league players, minor league players on how many teams we had? Four or five different teams.
Wow. That's amazing. I would think, especially in baseball, the level of being able to process what your eyes are taking in and then have the reflexology. I mean, I don't think people understand when you have a ball coming at you that fast, not only at the plate, but even in the field, when you see them doing great, they make everything look easy. But the reflexology, they remind me of cats. Cats are all languid and just kind of lazing around, but when they have to act, they're like on a dime.
Yeah. And that's true. This paper I mentioned, we were the first ones to publish what the average vision is for a professional baseball player. And what do you think the average vision is? 20/20 is kind of normal vision, right? What do you think the normal vision is for baseball?
Oh man, I mean, let me just interject something here because I work IT by day. These
Hmm.
phones are destroying our eyes. It can't be that good.
Well, you tell me what you think, and I'll tell you what the answer is.
Oh man, it's got to be at least 3 or 4 clicks below perfect, easy.
Yeah. So 20/20 is average. That's important to keep in mind. It's not average. 20/20 is not perfect vision. It's
Right.
average vision. And 20/8, meaning that whoever can see 20/8 can see from 20 feet what the average person sees from 8 feet.
Yeah.
That's pretty much considered best vision. These ball players, 20/12 is the average. So they're not 20/20, they're not 20/15, they're one line further, 20/12, and then they get 20/10 and 28, if you will. And so they're incredibly sharp at vision, but it's not just the sharpness, it's the ability to process information quickly.
Yeah.
It's the ability to recognize low contrast targets because the seams of the baseball are red, currently are red on white. It's not black on white. Lower contrast, harder to see. So in fact, we created a test with one of the major pharmaceutical companies that tests vision kind of in a different way. It's not the eye chart where you have unlimited time to look at a black and white, letter and come up with 3 or 4 guesses until you get it right. That doesn't fly in trying to hit a fastball. So what we do is we show targets for about a third of a second, maybe a quarter of a second. They're very faint, low contrast, and they're very small. So they're small, faint, and a short viewing time. And that's what sports is like. And in fact, that correlates to batting metrics on the field in actual players, in actual performance. Whereas the regular eye chart doesn't correlate to actually baseball batting ability. So you really have to test vision as it's used, not just how it's been done for 100+ years in the eye doctor's office with the eye chart. Think about driving. I know here in New York we have rain. I think in Missouri I saw it was going to be rainy today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cloudy. Think about driving in the rain, trying to read a street sign that's very small. You're driving, at a certain speed, so you only have a certain amount of time to read it, and it's foggy outside. That's kind of what it's like to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and you need to have really good vision skills to achieve both tasks.
Yeah. What's been the most surprising thing about being in this line of work?
How normal the players are, I think,
Okay.
is what I would say.
Okay.
The vision part, I expected that. You used to go to a baseball game, you try to watch the ball leave a pitcher's hand and reach the plate. You barely see the ball moving at all. And you wonder how can anyone catch it, hit it, or do anything with it. So no surprise that these guys are going to have good visual function. You look at other sports. I look at pictures of. It was a restaurant this past weekend, and there was pictures of Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth on the walls. All these famous baseball players. I looked at them and I said, "Wow, these guys look so old compared to the guys that I see in camp," and I couldn't really understand that. And if I ever saw Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig, I'd be kind of in awe. I'm not sure what I would say.
Yeah.
But the ball players here, they're just normal guys. They're
Yeah.
guys who have a skill, they have an ability, they have a talent, and that's gotten them to a place where they make, many of them make a lot of money, much
Yeah.
more money than I've ever made in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But they're down to earth, normal guys. When they start, I've seen guys from the draft through signing, through minor league baseball, through AAA to major league to the end of their career. Their entire career, I've seen guys, and it's just amazing to watch them change and grow, both physically and emotionally,
Yeah.
throughout that period. And to me, that was the most different thing that I thought. I thought these guys were going to be superstars, and they're really just guys just like us.
Yeah.
But they have the skill that I hope I have a good skill in medicine. They have a good skill in their sport.
Absolutely. Well, but the thing about sports is over the years, it's really ramped up with all of these different metrics and all of these things that go in. Because back in the Gehrig Ruth days, there wasn't any of this science, you know? They just, half of them were coming in hungover and hitting home runs, two or three home runs still. And now we've got it down. I mean, the thing I think that's the weirdest about baseball is that they won't let pitchers do a full no hitter. They're bringing in people to do it, you know? And that's really the science of it. They're trying to break everything up to save them.
Yeah, to some, and I'm probably partly to blame for this because I create a lot of numbers every year when
Yeah.
I evaluate the players, performance numbers and comparisons and correlations and all this statistical stuff. Um, it takes away a little bit, from the game, I think. Um, well, game is entertainment, but it's really a war, right? It's two sides fighting each other in a rule-based environment. No one gets hurt, but it's really a war. And in a war, you try to bring out everything you can to win, and you can't blame clubs from trying to do everything, trying to push the rules to some extent. You've seen clubs stealing signs and different things like that. That's not part of the rules of the war, the rules of war. But on the other hand, you see guys, teams looking at motion and measuring every angle of the arm of the pitcher as they go through the windup and looking at statistics and what they've done and what they can do and using artificial intelligence to make predictions about what's going to happen next and what pitcher is going to be best in this situation. All sorts of different things. And for me, it's extremely stimulating because it's very interesting to try to figure out what little edge we can give a player or a club to perform better. And I think that's really something that really has come a long way from what it was 30 years ago, 31 years ago when I started doing this. That whole notion of database science and giving a little edge. The truth is, though, the teams that have brought me in really are, and I'm not, a lot of teams have won the World Series that I've been on. 8 teams so far, many league championships. If you look at the statistics on the internet, Yogi Berra I think has won more. Guys from way back have won more World Series, but not many. There's no one alive, I don't think, who's won 8 World Series in total. But that's not because of me. I'm more almost of a symptom. I'm hopefully a piece that's helped, but the clubs that bring me in have the mindset of what to do to win, and they've looked at all these different areas and try to tweak all the different levers to maximize the performance. And I think that's why these clubs are getting the into the postseason, into the championships. But it's changed the game a lot. I think it's a plus as far as I'm concerned. But I could see that there would be a good argument for maybe it's too much.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes I don't want to be the old guy in the room. Like, all right, I get it. I know there's modern things going on, but there's just still that whole aggro thing. I mean, growing up in the 80s and just watching how things kind of unfolded without any technology was kind of romantic. But we all have that in our lives. Our kids now, when they have kids, they're going to be complaining about things because AI is so new. But I'm curious in your line of work, being so in tune with these players and what you do. Are there times where you see certain players go up to bat in high pressure situations and you just know they're better off than another player?
Well, I don't think and that takes us back to the last topic. None of this is a guarantee of performance.
Right.
Nothing. Nothing that I do, nothing that any of these statistical people do or anything. There's still a piece that's unmeasurable, if you will. In fact, in many of the projection models that teams have, there's an unknown percentage that they just can't quantify. Now, when they look at division data, we actually can reduce that unknown by a little bit because division data helps to some extent. But that means there's stuff that we don't know about, which means that when someone goes out to the plate, anything can happen. A guy who never hit a home run can hit a home run.
Yeah.
A guy who hits home runs all the time can strike out. There's this element of call it chance at this point, just because we can't measure it. Chance is basically something that we can't measure. So we say it's by chance that can happen. So I don't think I would ever want to say that any player is going to do something when he gets to the plate. Now,
Yeah.
I can tell you about a player, Stephen Drew, in I think 2013, maybe 2018. I don't recall. 2018, I think. Was doing very poorly, and I can talk about him because it's been in the press. So the word is out, if you will. that was doing very poorly. He came to see me. I gave him correction with contact lenses. The next day, he did wonderfully, and the Red Sox won the World Series, and I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell you what he's going to do at any at bat, but I
Yeah.
was pretty sure he was going to do better because he had done so poorly in batting. It was like a batting average of 0.17 or 0.017, which is abysmal.
Yeah.
In the last game, he went 2 for 4, would have been 3 for 4, except for a diving catch by the first baseman that took an out. But one was, I think, a home run, and one was a double or something like that. It's about a 500 that game, if you will, on
Yeah.
four tries. So that was a major difference from what he had done previously. Now I don't
Absolutely.
have any experience what would have happened in the next game after that because that was the World Series clincher.
Yeah.
But the idea being that when I corrected his vision, I kind of knew he was going to do better. I didn't know what he's going to do,
Yeah.
but I knew he was going to do better. But there's that unknown that's just not measurable.
Sure. Absolutely. Which is the beauty of sports. You have no idea what day anything's going to happen. I look at Kansas City in 14. No one picked that team to go past the wild card. Salvi makes the hit. We get on a run. That's the reason why we love sports. The pageantry of the unknown is the beauty of it, you
Well,
know?
why is the Final Four, the Sweet 16, Final Four of the
Yeah.
NCAA tournament, why is that so popular? Because everybody knows anything can happen, and look what happened so far.
Yeah, for sure. So, what's your motivation every day to get up, to do the work that you do, to help these athletes, and to grow as a human? What is that for you?
Well, every time I read something that's interesting, I think, how can I use that, for these ball players? How can I develop the idea further? And to me, that's extremely rewarding. That's kind of fun to me, to watch a player I've helped perform well. I remember Stephen Drew. I didn't go to the game. I was home watching the game, and when he performed as he did, I felt really good,
Yeah.
personally. So on a personal level, that's very fulfilling, and that's what keeps me going day by day. Um, Fortunately, my days are pretty interesting. I have a varied practice, if you will. I still see kids a couple times a week, of all different kinds. I see athletes quite a bit. I spend a lot of time communicating with clubs about different questions they may have or things that I think we should look at. And all those things are, to me, very interesting, and it goes into all different areas of life. Statistics, physics, light, certainly medical stuff. Eye care, neurology, psychology. One of my sports vision heroes passed away last week, Danny Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize in economics, but who had all sorts of theories and publications about the role of bias in decision making. And you can see really well the information goes into your brain, and when you turn that black box to figure out what you're going to do, a bias is going to be a role is going to affect the vision. It's
Yeah.
going to affect what your vision gives you, and that his work was really important in understanding that. And so there's I think my day's pretty. Let's put it this way: I'm never bored. I have always something to
Yeah.
do, always something I'm interested in, and when I go to bed at night, having looked at a bunch of stuff, I feel like that was a good day.
Absolutely. So you get to hang around what people would consider heroes for us civilians. But who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration?
That's a good question. That lots of different sources, right? You can't just go on one line. So Danny Kahneman, as I mentioned, is one in that academic sphere. Somebody who I don't know if I didn't tell you, I just published a book called Eye of the Champion,
Yeah.
all about sports vision. In the very beginning of the book, and I think towards the back, I have a photograph of somebody who I've done a lot of work with. Here's a picture actually of us in Dodgertown
Yeah.
when it was in Vero Beach, Florida. The two of us, and he was an optometrist at UCLA when I first started and got this project that I mentioned in sports vision. He taught me a lot about vision, about how the vision system works, and we still work together in spring training, seeing the players. So he's an inspiration, certainly, in the approach there. You can't do much without family, and there's family inspiration. Without that support, you really can't get anything done. That's in the book as well. And so I think that I tried in this book to summarize all the things you've asked me about, in fact, of how I got started. That's the first chapter of why I do it, why it's interesting, the parts of vision that can apply to athletes perform better so people can learn what to do, how to understand it, how the role of bias in decision making. All of that's in a pretty quick 200 pages that hopefully people will enjoy.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, as a sports fan and someone that's close to it, What's the best game you've ever seen, and what would be a dream game you could get into a time machine and go back and see?
The best game. There's two best games, and they happened in the same season, 2004, with the Red Sox in Boston. Certainly, when they won the World Series, I actually was in Italy. No, I was actually back. I think it was back here already. But during the playoffs, I was in Italy, of getting texts of what was happening.
Yeah,
But the best game was during the postseason. I think it was against the Angels, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember for sure. Um, Bottom of the ninth, Big Poppy was at the plate, and as Big Poppy often did, hit a home run. And they won the game. But the best part was I was there with my youngest son,
yeah,
and him jumping up and down doing that during that win.
yeah.
I'll never forget.
Wow. So you don't even have to worry about a time machine. You've been there.
I've been doing this for 31 years. I've seen a lot.
Wow.
I'm not, there's games I'd like to go back, watch Lou Gehrig, his last game. I've heard the recordings, I've seen the movie, but I would love to have been there.
Yeah.
Um, things like that. But there's so much you can go back to in life that's not really worth thinking about.
Sure.
Looking forward, I think is positive.
Absolutely it is. So you're kind of the Yogi Berra of sports doctors, so you got a lot of brass. But I'm curious in this life of so many things that you talk about that even on a daily basis is fulfilling. So you've had all these things happen. What are you the proudest of all these things that you've been involved with?
What do I what?
What are you the proudest of with all of the
Oh.
accomplishments and everything you've done?
Well, easily the first thing is not going to be anything professional that I've done. To have kids that are successful and
Yeah.
grandkids, that's the most successful. But professionally speaking, um, I'm going to say I think the book, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because that's something that we call evergreen, right? That's something that lasts past me, and at 62, 63 almost. I'm still in the middle of what I'm doing here. I have a lot of stuff I want to do, but I'm not like I was when I was 25 or 30. In some sense, I know a lot more and I'm smarter. In other senses, I'm not as aggressive, eager, if you will. I'd like to see the in sports vision, next generation of sports vision specialists kind of carry on what myself and several other researchers and scientists have done to make this a field that's science based, that's supported by evidence. Unfortunately, there's a lot of sports vision specialists that no matter what sport you play, you come in, you get the same treatment. And I don't think anybody would go to a doctor who gave everybody the same pill, regardless of their complaint: sore throat, headache, stomach problem, leg problem. You get the same pill. No one's going to go to that doctor because it's not going to be very successful. You want an evidence-based approach to find out what the problem is, design a fix that's supported by previous research, and that's what's going to help you, most likely help you as well. And that's the approach that I want to see sports vision take. And unfortunately, that's not probably yet the mainstream approach. And I've put on courses, I've done a YouTube channel with a lot of videos, and I'm hoping the book will help kind of move people in that direction so that athletes will come in and say to the doctor, I don't want to do the same thing that he's doing. I want to know why I'm doing this and explain to me why. And I want to do this because I've read about this. And people will be more knowledgeable, be able to promote, not promote, but be able to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
And doctors will understand what they have to do to help a basketball player versus a hockey player versus a baseball player excel at their sport.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, your clients, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
um, I'm probably an overworking, overthinking, overachieving, trying to overachieve, trying to do too many things because I have too many interests without a master of all, a master of all, well, no, a jack of all trades, a master of none
Yes.
type of person.
Yeah.
It's always a matter of trying to push things a little, this project a little further, and then this project catching up, and this one, and I have I can't juggle, but if I could juggle, I would have 10 balls in the air, to try to be successful.
Yeah.
And truth is, at this point, I'm thinking to myself, how many balls I want to have up in the air, and
Yeah.
where do I want to put my emphasis? Because there are a lot of things that are important, and I want to make sure that you can never get time back again. I want to make sure I spend my time wisely.
So we've scratched the surface. If anyone wants to delve in and get the book, or they want to learn more about you, reach out, anything about your world, how can they do that?
Yeah, so the website that I use is called sportsvision.nyc. Sports Vision, obviously, and I'm located in New York, so I have a .nyc, not com, but NYC logo. You can type my name in Google, you'll see a lot of some good stuff, some bad stuff
Yeah.
in Google, but that's one place. YouTube, I have a YouTube channel of almost 14,000 subscribers. Every week I put a YouTube video out. Most of them are related to sports. This week actually is something that hopefully you'll be able to experience on Monday, and that's the solar eclipse.
Yeah.
I think it's probably passing pretty well over Missouri, I think.
Yeah. We're gonna get a good vision. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to make sure that not only the athletes, but everybody understands the importance of protecting their eyes
Yeah.
with the solar eclipse and what's kind of can do, what you should do, shouldn't do. So that's this week's video, came out this morning, but in general, it's about a sports topic, long form, short form. The book, as I mentioned, on Amazon. I just got a note that the audiobook is out on a couple different platforms like Nook and a couple other ones. Audible is on the way. They take longer to approve it.
Yeah.
So it's a Kindle book, it's a soft cover, it's a hardcover, it's an audio book. There's no excuse somebody
Yeah.
who's interested in sports performance shouldn't be able to get this book. And
Absolutely.
if anybody can't afford it, write me an email. I'll send it to you as a PDF. But it's not not a big deal.
Sounds wonderful, Daniel. This has been so fascinating and intriguing. Thank you, sir, for your time. Best of luck with the book and everything else.
My pleasure. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
it was interesting.
Oh, it was
Take care.
perfect. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Bye bye.